Braveheart Workshops, inspiring connection. Restore. Dream. Getaway experiences. Love, live, and laugh. With Braveheart Workshops. Live now with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show. Restore, renew, and reconnecting community. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is Patricia Rogers. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Well, hello, Jill. How are you?
I am wonderful today. I would love the audience, Patricia, to know a little bit about you, so I'm going to share your bio with them. Patricia Rogers, a retired corrections lieutenant, completed 29 years in law enforcement from Miami Dade County, where she trained thousands of employees to excel in their careers. Pat also completed 12 years in the U.S. Army Reserves. Graduated from St. Thomas University in 2016, Pat invested in herself by receiving the coaching and guidance needed to become a successful entrepreneur and a public speaker. She discovered her gifts, talents, and hobbies and turned them into a business that she loves. Pat has positioned herself as a visibility strategist, an international public speaker, international best-selling author, coordinator, a virtual event consultant, a legal service provider. Coach Pat knows that people need people. Pat sets a platform for entrepreneurs to be seen and heard in front of the masses by interviewing entrepreneurs on live multiple platforms.
YouTube ads beat Facebook ads every time. Let's face it, Facebook ad costs are going through the roof. And even when you have a great ad, they're almost impossible to scale.
Affordable, legal, and identity theft services. Pat's Visibility Strategic system provides consultation for her clients. So that's a lot to do in a lifetime, I'm telling you. You are a woman on the go.
and that's exactly what it is, a lifetime. You're right. It never stops. It just keeps going and going and going. And the more we achieve, the more we want to achieve. So that means that our creative mind is constantly going when we believe and when we value trusting and serving other people.
That is true. So one thing I love to do on my show, do you like to be called Patricia or Pat? What do you prefer?
Pat, preferably.
Preferably. Okay. It's good to ask that because I wasn't sure. So Pat, one of the things we like to do on the Connection Show is connect dots in our lives. I think connecting dots is so imperative to really see the patterns and to see the journey that we're on. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take us on a little bit of a journey back to little Pat days and tell us a little bit about growing up and then what led you down the journeys that you've been in? If you can take us on that little journey down Pat's lane.
Wow, you're taking me way back, Jill.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I don't really get that. I don't get to go back that far on interviews, but since you opened the door, I'm going in. It's never hard to just talk about life, and the truth,
Mm-hmm.
But I was raised in a family of 8. I'm the last of the 8 siblings. And we have lost one of our brothers just recently. And we just want to say thank God and bless his family and him. And, may he rest in peace. And of course, those
all
types
you
of
need
things
to launch a cult escape
lives,
plan.
I'm going in.
An ability to escape,
or at least I'm going to speak totally from the heart. When those things, tragedies like that happen in our lives, what happens with me is it makes me want to move faster and more farther. That means it makes me want to really reach my destiny. I want to fulfill it. I want to fulfill the true destiny. Why? Because life is not promised to us every day. We just don't know when it's going to come. So those things kind of tragedies such as that, when it hits home, it sends a light bulb off that, hey, all you haven't done, God left you behind to get it right. So I'm excited about life. You know, I've been excited about it. And from there, I was raised in the family, and I went to school, of course, graduated junior high, senior high. And of course, I ended up going to college. But the reality of it is that when I was coming up, Jill, I had no clue about who I was, what I wanted to do, where I was going. I came up in a very strict religious home. So everything that I did was based upon what we were taught, not based upon what my own ideas of what life was.
And what type of a spiritual home were you raised in? What type of faith?
I'm Pentecostal. My mother's Pentecostal. I came up in a Pentecostal. We believe in God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Good.
I'm going in since you brought it up.
So many hours in church.
Many hours in church.
Many hours praising the Lord.
Yes. I'm glad you know about that. Good, because yes, that's exactly what it was. And that, of course, because of that, and that was not what my desire was. We do it as children. We go because our parents teach us. We do what we are told to do. But as we grow up in life, we develop a belief of our own and who God really is. And so because of that, I was a bit rebellious. You know, I did a lot of things that was not taught. I was not supposed to do.
Oh, come on. Like, what did you do? What did you do, Pat? Like, what did you do?
I did some things that I was taught not to do. Not that it was so bad and so wrong. It's just that it was what made it wrong was because I was told not to do it. Such as wearing pants. We weren't supposed to wear pants, shorts. We weren't supposed to play sports in school. I had to wear dresses to my knees, you know, and I mean, come on, you know what I'm saying? So that just all that opened the door for it to be picked on and stereotyped and all those things.
Yeah.
So when I got 17,
how to get the best tool for creating stunning videos? Go to motionary.com and get the best video templates to make that.
I had enough.
So then you went in the Army Reserves and suited up in pants, right?
Yes. I said the best way to get out of this is to leave home. Mm-hmm. But I had sense enough, Jill, that when I left, I had sense enough to go into the military because I knew the military would give me an education. I knew they would give me uniform, clothing to wear. I knew they would give me a paycheck, and I knew that I would have food on my table. And I would still have
and you would still have discipline, and the discipline and the training is just amazing. The discipline and training.
All of those good things came with it. The training, definitely. The training, that's one of the main reasons, because whatever the skill was, and I went into the medical field at that time. My goal was to be a nurse at that time. And so I knew I would get the training that I needed in the military. But I also knew that I would get that window of opportunity where when I'm off, and I'm not working those hours of the military, I got that little time belongs to me. So I had a chance to discover the world. And needless to say, after all of that, I must say that when I decided to do it my way, and in the end result was that I still had to make that connection with God. I had to get to know who he was.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Scott Victor. Thank you for stopping by. This is centered around
I love, Pat, I love the Bible verse that says, train up your children in the way that they should go. And when they grow old, they will not depart from it. So even though we sometimes become the prodigal son or daughter,
perfect for you. I hope you enjoy them. If you're new to the channel, I specialize in working in marketing technique,
it's embedded in us and in our soul.
digging and finding out cool stuff that you can use for your own channel,
that we're ready
to grow
to
as
surrender
quickly as possible
and
by doing the daily work,
the God of our
staying with the grind,
understanding,
and remaining
then
positive and having
it's
fun.
like we return
let's
to
get
the
into
roots,
it. Here
but
are the
now we're
backgrounds.
so
I hope
much
you enjoy
more
them.
grounded.
I'll see you at the end of the video where I'll tell you how to download these videos
and that's
very
basically
quickly.
exactly
Again, these
what
are
has happened in my life. And I'm just so glad that the journey my mother did take me on, because I realized today, Jill, that God is my best friend. He is our best resource. But what he does for us is he provides other resources so that we can walk in our destiny and reach our highest potential. You know, so that was just really gratifying to me, you know, because like I said,
this is my video.
I really totally
it's pretty good, right?
To lead me and guide me.
Well, it's
and
a
when
little
I came out of the military,
Can't you do something like this?
I was still in, but I landed a job with the Miami Dade County Department
well, I've
of
got a
Corrections.
logo for my coffee business.
That started my career and I remained in the Army and the
sure,
military
but
for
your video still looks a little
reserves.
basic.
So
Let me show you what people really want to see.
I did services on the 1 year. And once I got going really in my career, I went ahead and I ETS, meaning I was released from the military, you know, honorable discharge. I did 12 years, and then I fulfilled my career in Miami Dade County Department of Corrections here in Miami, Florida. And I did 29 years, as you said in my bio, and I retired as a correctional lieutenant after serving those 29 years. And that was in 2016. Prior to 2016, I started marketing legal and identity theft services because I knew I was going to have to retire soon. I was coming up on my retirement, and I had to prepare. And that's one thing I want the listening audience to know, especially if they're still working for the corporate arena. You have to prepare for your retirement. It's not something you sit and wait to the last minute. You know you're going to want to retire. Preparation is the key to all of our success.
Well, I love what you shared about like the Army Reserves especially too, because I used to live in Chicago before I moved to Branson, Pat. And when we went to Iraq, when we got called up to go to Iraq as a nation, my neighbors were both Army reservists, both he and his wife both, where she had served in Kuwait during the Kuwait call up. And so when Iraq hit, he got called up. And I remember that his wife, whose name was Patty, she immediately put her retirement in because they had 4 children at home, the youngest being 2 twin boys. And she said, oh boy, they might call both of us up at the same time because we're at war. So she hurried up and took her retirement while Randy got deployed.
Right.
And it was so funny. I felt called by God to help the family while he was overseas for 2 years, where, you know, we'd have him over for Christmas and Thanksgiving and buy the kids Christmas gifts and help her out. And I'll never forget the one day I went to her house, and it was right before a Christmas party that she was going to without her husband. And she was crying and really like missing him and sad. And she said, I am just so worried and stuff, you know, and she said that he may never come home. And I said, this is funny, you'll love this. I said, do you get scared sometimes too, being home alone with the 4 kids? And she goes, me scared? She says, I'm a trained killer. No, I'm not scared. I'm a trained killer. Wow. She said, I just am scared he won't come home, but I'm not scared about anyone messing with me.
I know that's right. Yeah.
And I said, that's a powerful woman. I'm a trained killer. I love that. I just love that visual, you know, of a woman serving our nation and knowing she can protect and serve not only the country, but her family as well.
Yes, absolutely. That was I remember those days. Yes, I had just landed my career in corrections, and I went to work, and they called me into the office and told me that I had orders to go to Iraq. You know, getting out of that is not something so easy, but due to some circumstances that I had with my daughter at the time, and I was going through some legal stuff, I was able to, you know, curtail that and not go there, you know, at that time. Mm-hmm. And so that too was a blessing at that time because, you know, family comes first, you know, in all instances. Yeah. But I still thank God. So I stayed in there for a little while longer. And then after that, I went ahead and I got out and I just fulfilled my career in law enforcement. And as I was talking about preparation and preparing, after that, once I came up on my retirement, I was already marketing the legal and identity theft services. And that's all I thought I was going to be doing. I was satisfied. I just wanted to be with a group of people who traveled, have a business that I could market, enjoy, because I love protecting families with the legal protection and the identity theft services that they provide.
And which company are you with? Is it which legal service are you with?
Legal Shield. Legal Shield. I'm with Legal Shield.
Okay.
And of course, I enjoy doing that. And so when I would go out into the communities to market, basically, I went to a lot of networking events. And when I would set up my tables and things of that nature as a vendor to market those services, I realized I had a defining moment. And I realized, you know, that, hey, you can host these events yourself, because if you and I'm sure you know this to be true, it's easier to get the word out in front of groups of people rather than one person at a time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize my gifts, my hobbies was bringing people together. I didn't know it as that. But that's when I said in my bio, I had to discover. So what we have to do as entrepreneurs, as individuals, period, we have to discover what our gifts and our talents are inside of us, and then we get to monetize them. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what happened to me. And I started hosting events in my backyard. All the entrepreneurs would come over, and I would let everybody have a 60-second infomercial. That was my hook to get them there. People like to be seen and heard. I don't care if they're introverts and they may say, I don't like the camera. Deep down, people want to be everybody.
Well, and the smartest and most successful salespeople are the ones who don't sell their products and services. And I mean that. The ones who don't sell their products and services are the most successful. And by that I mean, when you're selling yourself and you're helping others, and it's about serving them versus serving your almighty pocketbook, then you're not selling. Right. And I was in outside sales for 38 years, and I'm a strong Christian. I was a single, never married mom for 17 years. And Pat, the one thing I learned about sales more than anything, and being a Christian in sales, was to pull up in front of that appointment and sit in the car for 5 minutes and intercede in prayer for the client and say, Father God, you know more than I what this customer's needs are. And if this customer's needs in service are purchasing my services, let that be known. And if it's not, help me to brush off the sand and go to the next client, because every prospect is not a client.
That's right.
But if you go in, like I love your slogan, unity and service, when you go in with unity and service, you walk out of that appointment, even if it's not a closed sale, knowing that you went for the best purpose of that person and that it's not about you.
That's right.
It's not about you.
You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what happened. I would pay for the vending tables, and I paid for the DJ. I would pay for the food. I was renting the table and chairs. I did all of that. You're right, for the people. And then as I started taking public speaking training and started joining organizations like the Women's Prosperity Network, which is we're both a part of, Bill Walsh International Power Team, that was right after I retired. As I was retiring, I joined these organizations. I started following those who had what I wanted. And that's when I learned that Pat Rogers has gifts. So what do you have to give? Legal Shield only gives you a piece of the pie, but your gifts will give you the whole thing. Yeah. And that's when I had to learn all of that. So eventually, with the training that I needed, I started hosting my own events, and I started going into hotels, and the tickets were no longer free. My events were no longer free. Then I began to sell tickets, and I've been doing that now for 7 years, and people fly from all over to attend my events. I'm very visible on social media. I always believe that if you're not there, nobody sees you. And why am I visible on social media? Why do I exercise those platforms? Because that's where everybody's hanging out at. So we have to go where the people are in order to be served, and in order to serve others as well. And so that's how my journey got started.
And thus you call yourself the Visibility Strategist.
Absolutely.
You got to be visible.
That only happened since COVID-19 came in. When COVID-19 came, that shifted everything for me. I no longer can have live events. I had to cancel the one I had. And it was, all the monies I'd raised at that point from my participants, I had to give that money back because I canceled the event. And I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out, Jill. What do I do next? How do I go online? But that was the way of the world. We know that challenges, and we know that when crises come, what I've learned through this whole process is that crises come, but crises open doors of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so now I started online in May, and now I have hosted approximately 10 online events since May. And I'm already getting ready for my next year's events, which we have 5 of those events lined up. So I am definitely now an expert in the virtual events. And I show other individuals how to host their events. So again, as I said, other doors of opportunity open up. I wasn't coaching before COVID came, and all of the events I hosted, people saw that I had what they wanted, and they wanted more. So therefore, it led me to the one-on-ones.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, one of my taglines, Pat, on the Connection Show is I have 3 taglines, believe it or not, because they evolved. They evolved with COVID and the rebranding of my business. And instead of dropping the ones I had, I just
I'm going to show you how
easy
easy it is to make a beat with Serato
taglines, and I like them all
it's
3.
crazy.
So
All right.
the one that really came to me after COVID hit was restore, renew, and reconnect in community. And so, I'm one of those types of people that I like to look up the definition in the dictionary because sometimes I get confused with the meaning of words because they sometimes seem very similar. And so I looked up the word, and Pat, the word restore means to bring back to a previous situation or to reinstate. So we're only a few weeks away from 2021. Yeah. What would you like to restore in 2021? Bring back to previous situation.
What would I like to restore and bring back to previous situations? Oh my God, that's a good question, because I'm gonna tell you, as it relates to COVID-19, I'm happy. I'm loving working from home. Like I said, so it's working really well for me. But one thing I will say that I miss very much is our coming together in the house of worship. Being online, going to church, being online, it's not the same, but we do make do with what we have. Mm-hmm. So if I could do it all over again, I would certainly like to get back into the realm of the congregation.
I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a beat
that we had before.
Where do you live? What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Miami, Florida.
You're in
U.S.
I'm surprised because Miami stayed pretty open. I'm in Branson, and we reopened our churches here, at least 2 months ago, or maybe longer. No, more than that. At least 4 months ago with the social distancing. And
right, that's my point. That's my point. It's not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah.
That's the difference, and it probably would never be the same.
Yeah.
We opened our doors for a little while, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And now we closed them back.
Yeah. Yeah, the community, that community feeling and the full house of worship feels different.
Right. Yeah. Just the jubilistic services that we had and so on and so forth. But again, that goes back to the fact that we have to have an understanding of who God is personally, because we still do that, but that's the one thing that I miss the most, just those congregations eating together.
I definitely
singings, visitors, churches coming in, singing and stuff.
Dancing.
Like that. Dancing, shouting. We call it shouting, yes. So those are the things that if I could restore anything, I would restore that.
Yeah. And then the next word is renew. Renew means to resume after an interruption. What would you like to renew in your life? Anything that you'd like to renew?
What would I like to renew in my life? I am constantly working on my mind, my creative mindset. I'm constantly reading or discovering, I'm going to say it like this, I'm constantly in a relationship with God to the point where I'm looking to Him to give me all the guidance that I need, open up my understanding, give me the knowledge that I need. But and I know, Jesus, when we achieve one thing, one success, there's yet another one that we want more. It's just like being an athlete, we want more. So therefore, I have to constantly keep my mind not only renewed to have new gifts and talents, and to discover more gifts and talents that are inside of me, because we're full of them. But I also want to keep my mind renewed in a spiritual sense.
So renew your mind in Christ Jesus, just like the verse says.
Absolutely.
Come before you, renew my mind.
And all else follows. All else falls into place.
Yeah. And the last one is reconnect. Reconnect means reestablish a bond of communication or emotions. What would you like to reconnect in 2021?
What would I like to reconnect in 2021? I'm gonna have to say the only connections that I'm looking for is to continue to be of service to other people, set my platform so that public speakers can speak, be seen and heard, share their message from the stage. Other entrepreneurs can be definitely be benefited and blessed through our online event. So reconnecting and connecting is always ongoing with the services that I provide. So I'm constantly staying in front of people because those connections have to be made. And many of them are reconnections from some of those people who have already been in my life or have been a part of my journey.
Yeah,
I definitely want to keep them in the pipe.
I love the definition with reconnect, meaning reestablish a bond of communication or emotions, because I think too what I'm finding is I think a lot of people have been disconnected from their emotions in the mist, because it's just been so much. And so I think even just the reconnection of emotions, you had shared earlier about your beloved brother who passed on.
You build a legacy.
I lost my beloved
one
sister
thing, but from everything.
She was diagnosed on her 68th birthday in June of pancreatic cancer.
2007, I came back and I had the great joy of sitting at Maya Angelou's table. She hadn't been able to attend the opening in South Africa, and I said to her,
"Oh,
Maya,
who was in perfect health, he went to the gym
the Oprah
3
Winfrey
times a
Leadership
week.
Academy, that's going to be my greatest legacy."
He went to the hospital and he died.
I remember
2
she
days
was standing
after
at the
my
counter
sister.
making biscuits, and
So
she turned.
we just had,
she
and then
put
that
the dough
evening, I
down,
was in the hospital
and
for
she
5
looked at
days
me
with
and
COVID.
she said,
So it was like
"You have no
whirlwind
idea
in
what your
September
legacy
for us.
will be."
And, but I loved earlier what you had said with the passing of 2 very close family members and the grief that I had to go through. The blessings that came from me getting COVID were I had to be from the hospital. I had to go to a hotel suite for 4 weeks, quarantining and waiting for the 2 funerals before we could have the funerals. And in that time, I call it that time of waiting for the end of the funerals and the moving of my stepmom to Branson to live with us at Sumner House, I had all this time to be still.
Come on.
And be quiet. And so I was able to just get in a fetal position on my king bed in the hotel and just bawl my eyes out. One day I knew it was coming, and we had gotten a suite with 2 bedrooms so that my husband could be in one and I could be in the other because of me wanting to quarantine, so he wouldn't get it. He did get it though, but we tried to keep it away, and it didn't stay away. But I remember the one particular night, Pat, I was laying on the bed and I could tell it was going to be a tough night. And I called out to my husband. I said, "I need you to come and sit next to me on the bed." And I just bawled like a baby, like an Abba father, crying out and just saying, "I want my daddy. I miss my daddy," and just bawled and bawled and bawled for about at least an hour. And it was so rejuvenating. And so I love the definition, reconnect with not only communication, but our deep rooted emotions. It's so important to connect.
Yes, absolutely. And all that's a part of, like you said, identifying our emotions. And I like that because that's something I've been saying lately too. When we know the things that will distract us and take us off course, then of course, when we know what they are and we can identify them, then we can overcome them.
Yep, exactly.
So it's very important to know who we are.
It is. And to hear and to listen to God telling us what we need to purge inside of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Kind of like that new beginnings. Unity and Service. Tell me about that organization. I'd love to hear about it.
Well, Unity and Service is a name that I came up with even when I was working for corporate America. Like I said, I was preparing. I knew I was going to be retired one day, and I knew I did not want to go back to work for anyone else. So common sense told me to retire. There was times that I saw people come to work that would retire, and they would come back to work because they did not properly prepare. And needless to say, they wouldn't stick and stay, or I see people who would leave our job and they're working somewhere else. So when I was attending different events that I would see being hosted, I would hang out, go visit these events. And I realized after listening to an attorney at one of the events, they told us we needed a company name. So they was educating us. And even long before I started, was retired, I started that name, Unity in Service. Now, where people need people, that came up later. That came up recently, this past few years, you know, when I realized that I cannot host events or no one can have a business if other people do not buy into their products and services. So that's when I'm like, okay, when I got my logo made years ago, I said, people need people.
Yes.
And that's what I want everybody to understand. So there's no such thing as doing this alone and by yourself, because if we don't buy some of the buy the products and the services from Walmart, from the banks, from Publix, from the car dealers, nobody would have a business. And I run my business just like that. So Unity in Service is where people need people, because I
have a great analogy that goes with it that you'll love when you get on stage, because it came to me, oh my goodness, about 10 years ago, and it just was profound. And I think when I really started looking at how important it is to look at that statement, people need people, I had this vision of Jesus walking on earth and going out and one by one finding his 12 disciples.
Yes.
And as he did, and I could envision Jesus, who was all-knowing and all-loving and was all filled with these things, why did Jesus need 12 disciples? He could have done it all himself. And so I see that analogy and I say, if Jesus needed 12 disciples, why do you think you can do life alone? Okay. Isn't that a good one? Like, absolutely. Why do you think you can do life alone, all knowing and all being, and he still walked the earth for 33 years and had 12 disciples alongside of him?
Absolutely. And I look at that analogy as well as training. You know, he trained those to take his place. Mm-hmm. And that's what we as individuals, mothers, fathers, entrepreneurs, whatever, that's our job. Our job is part of the journey is to train other people to take our place. Mm-hmm. You know, because this is how life continues to go on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. You know, and when there are some leaders who are selfish, we worried about who's going to take their idea, or, you know, somebody's going to make more money than them, but this is not, when you speak about Christ, this is not the way of God. God wants us to share. And that's what some of my clients tell me, that one thing they like about me, you don't mind sharing information. Well, it's not mine anyway. God just allows somebody to give it to me just like I'm giving it to you.
Yep, exactly.
You know, people need people.
Yep, they do. They do. And for several, I mean, one thing I learned years ago, I've done lots of personal work, and there's a thing in therapy called transference, where you look at someone and you can transfer about them and see it in yourself. And what I love about the word transference, Pat, is if I look, and you've been blowing me away because you look so much like the girl I used to live with in San Diego, who actually, her and I went to church together and became saved at the same time. And I'm looking at you and it's uncanny. Wow. Your smile and your cheekbones are identical to hers, like identical. Wow. It's weird. And every time you smile, I'm like, that's Michelle. Like, I'm like looking at you going, but transference is about, if I look at you, Pat, and I say, I love your smile. The only way I can say I love your smile is because I have a great smile too.
Right.
And then if I say to you, I don't like your controlling personality, it's because I don't like my controlling personality.
Absolutely.
And so
I can agree with that.
So I feel like not only did God put on earth the 12 disciples for training, but for reproof And so they can visually see and mirror off of Jesus and then themselves. They could see Jesus, then they could see that reflection of who they were in Christ. And they can see the good. They could see that. I mean, even in the Bible, it says Jesus was angry and he overthrew the money changers. So they could maybe then visually see when they were angry. So the transference is such a good part of connecting dots when we're around people that need people, because that way we see them and we're not just hearing them.
That's true. Yes, I can certainly relate to that, what you're saying too. Sometimes certain things that other people do, sometimes it kind of gets under my skin. And I have to look at myself. I say, well, I do that too. You know what I'm saying? And and it helps me to accept whatever it is, because, we can't change what we can't change, but we can certainly accept it. And again, it goes back to, I'm sure you've heard that one before. It's not about, it's about how I react to the things that are coming forth. And also, like you said, to add to that is that, we have to go through certain things, and God does have to show us ourselves. And he's going to do it through other people. And when we see ourselves, now we have a chance to get better.
Yep.
So we do need those moments, because it helps us to, like you said, reconnect, re-examine, restore, and revisit. We have to, because this is the only way we can stay on a path where we can be a positive example to other people.
Yep, exactly.
We do have to constantly continue to redo, renew, restore, all those things you said. It's an ongoing thing.
Yep, exactly. Well, if someone said to you today, Pat, you have to get rid of all of your apps on your cell phone, but you can keep 2. What are your 2 must-haves on your cell phone?
That's all I can keep 2.
Only 2.
Oh, that's okay. If I had my choice and I had to get rid of all of my apps, the 2 that I would keep on, one would be Facebook.
Okay.
2 would be my Bible.
I knew you were going to say that.
My little Bible.
Do you know I knew you were going to say that before you even said it?
I take it with me everywhere I go.
I bet you do.
Yes.
And I want to know, what is one fun fact about Pat? A fun fact.
A fun fact about Pat is that Pat has a sense of humor. Pat loves to make people smile. And, so she does have a sense of humor. A lot of times people don't know that. Another fun thing about Pat loves jet skis.
Jet skiing. Ooh, now that's...
Pat loves to go jet skiing. How about that?
Now that's a fun fact.
That's a fun fact. That's a fun fact. I'll be doing that real soon around here. I'm just waiting on things to light up a little bit. Yeah, but I love jet skiing, and I love water. I love mostly when I go to hotels. I have to make sure I stay at one that has a hot tub.
Well, you know what I love is I love water aerobics, and I have my own.
I love aerobics. Yes.
But I have my own water routine that you would have a blast with. It's so much fun. One of the things I do in water is I have everyone have noodles. And I love to blast on my Bose speaker 60s, 70s. And if I'm in a Christian group, I'll put on my praise and worship. But if it's a mixed group, I do my 60s, 70s mix. And I have everyone pretend like we're on Dancing with the Stars, and with our noodles, we'll do the jitterbug and the cha-cha-cha. And then I love doing kickboxing in the water. Kickboxing. It's fun. So I'm a water girl all the way. I just left the retreat, and we was doing water aerobics. Yeah, I love it. We're gonna do a retreat together, because I lead the water aerobics, and you know what else I'm really good at leading? What's that? Improv comedy. I saw improv on your bio.
Yeah.
We got to do so. It's so much fun. I have one skit that you would love where it's one person is the driver and the other person's the hitchhiker.
I love stuff like that. Yeah.
And then you do an improv on the driver stopping and picking up the hitchhiker, and it's so much fun. You would love it.
Oh, I bet that's a lot of fun. Yeah, that sounds fun. Wow,
well,
awesome.
what I'd love to do is show your bio to the audience so people know how to reach out to you. It's got Pat's website and how to reach out to her so that you can be a part of her visibility strategy and reach out to do that with her. So I listed that, and that's going to be on the YouTube channel as well when we post this live video. So
yeah, because we're currently right now we are doing bios also for professionals. A lot of times people don't have bios. They don't have professional bios. When you ask them for a bio, they don't have something to send. And more often than not, they'll send me their bio in the body of the email. And so that was another defining moment that God gave us, me and my partner, who I work with, Dorothy Ross. And he dropped that in my spirit since COVID too. He said, you can also do bios, because I've been doing this for 7 years. And some of the bios that I get, I need not even to mention the editing that I have to do with it to fix it so it's understandable. So that was another thing we do. So we've been doing bios for $35, and that will be going on until Christmas. That's our holiday special.
Good.
And we do it formatted.
We break and divide every demonic confederacy against the election, against America, against that who you have declared to be in the White House. We break it up in the name of Jesus. We lose confusion into every demonic confederacy directed right now at this election.
And that is so good. That's so good, Pat, because I cannot tell you some of the headshots that I get from people when they're going to be on my show, and I'm like, a headshot with them sitting like on the couch or with their cat and I'm like, no, a headshot. I don't want to see anything else. Just give me your headshot. And it's like, I want a headshot.
Yeah, you get all kinds of stuff. Because again, it's like when you talk about visibility strategy, and that's exactly why I believe that when I show up, I know that by my showing up professionally and hosting my events with all the various content.
So how do we learn?
Videos, I love doing videos.
And why do some of us learn things more easily than others? So as I was mentioned, I'm Dr. Laura Boyd. I'm a brain researcher here at the University of British Columbia. And these are the questions that fascinate me.
I have a great branding for you. I'll tell you offline.
So brain research is one of the great frontiers in the understanding of human physiology, and also in the consideration of what makes us who we are. It's an amazing time to be a brain researcher, and I would argue to you that I have the most interesting job in the world. What we know about the brain is changing at a breathtaking pace. And much of what we thought we knew and understood about the brain turns out to be not true or incomplete. Now, some of these misconceptions are more obvious than others. For example, we used to think that after childhood, the brain really could not change. And it turns out that nothing could be farther from the truth. Another misconception about the brain is that you only use parts of it at any given time and silent when you do nothing. Well, this is also untrue. It turns out that even when you're at rest and thinking of nothing, your brain is highly active. So it's been advances in technology such as MRI that's allowed us to make these and many other important discoveries. And perhaps the most exciting, the most interesting and transformative of these discoveries is that every time you learn a new fact or skill, you change your brain.
Well, that makes sense.
It's something we call neuroplasticity.
So I called it the connection
show. As little as 25 years ago, we thought that after about puberty, the only changes that took place in the brain were negative. The loss of brain cells with aging, the result of damage, like a stroke. And then studies began to show remarkable amounts of reorganization in the adult brain. And the ensuing research has shown us that all of our behaviors change our brain. But these changes are not limited by age. Good news, right? And in fact, they're taking place all the time. And very importantly, brain reorganization helps to support recovery after you damage your brain. The key to each of these changes is neuroplasticity. So what does it look like?
Missouri, the
Your brain can change in 3 very basic ways to support learning. And the first is chemical. Your brain actually functions by transferring chemical signals between brain cells, what we call neurons, and these trigger a series of actions and reactions. So to support learning, your brain can increase the amount or the concentrations of these chemical signaling that's taking place between neurons. Now, because this kind of change can happen very rapidly, this supports short-term memory, or the short-term improvement in the performance of a motor skill. The second way that the brain can change to support learning is by altering its structure. So during learning, the brain can change the connections between neurons. Now here, the physical structure of the brain is actually changing, so this takes a bit more time. These types of changes are related to long-term memory, the long-term improvement in a motor skill. Now, these processes, they interact, and let me give you an example of how. So we've all tried to learn a new motor skill, maybe playing the piano, maybe learning to juggle. And you've had the experience of getting better and better within a single session of practice and thinking, I've got it. And then maybe you've returned the next day and all those improvements from the day before, they're lost. What happened? Well, in the short term, your brain was able to increase the chemical signaling between your neurons. But for some reason, those changes did not induce the structural change that are necessary to support long-term memory. Remember that long-term memories take time, and what you see in the short term does not reflect learning. It's these physical changes that are now going to support long-term memories and chemical changes that support short-term memories. Structural changes also can lead to integrated networks of brain regions that function together to support learning. And they can also lead to certain brain regions that are important for very specific behaviors to change their structure or to enlarge. And so here's some examples of that. So people who read Braille, they have larger hand sensory areas in their brain than those of us who don't. Your dominant hand motor region, which is on the left side of your brain if you're right-handed, is larger than the other side. And research shows that London